We bring you further analysis of Balwin's annual results now. Balwin Properties' strong second half performance bolstered its overall financial results. After a dismal first half, the group recorded 62% of its annual revenue and 67% of its profit for the year in the second half of the period. The improved trading performance was led by the 75 basis point reduction in the prime lending rate since September 2024. Here's Balwin CEO Steve Brookes with greater insight.
The two halves, it's almost become a trademark of ours that the second half is better than the first half. But also I think sentiment improved in the second half. Rate cuts started. There was a general improvement in the market. So I think that's the result of it.
Yeah. Well, let's actually talk about that, because you talk about this kind of immediate positive impact coming from the cut in interest rates. How far has that gone? Do you think that there is still more room to go, as in more of the filtering of those interest rates to come through? Or do you think that you have experienced all the positivity that does come with it, at least in the short term?
Yeah, our consumers in this country are highly indebted, and our banks really are extremely solid, which is a great thing. And we would still like to see more interest rate cuts. We're still hoping for another 1% this year in total. And I think to be prudent, we would like to see 0.25% at a time, nice and steady, because then you don't get this burst of a bubble or this effect that everybody's rushing out. So, 0.25% every couple of months would be good. It would make a massive difference on and also not forgetting that we have the added benefit of our green bonds, which is something not to be underestimated. We're up to now almost 0.25% reduction for our clients on the best rate they can get, and that makes a massive difference over 20 years.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I noticed that talking about the challenging market conditions, there are a few measures that you implement, and really what stood out for me was your rate of construction to match the rate of sales. How are those dynamics playing out at this point?
We've been doing that for years. We don't want to have a lot of stock that's built blowing in the wind. We've been doing that for years. We watch it very, very carefully. At the same time, we need to keep continuity because we employ a lot of people. So what we don't want is the stop-start environment. We want a nice steady flow. That's why I was saying a nice steady reduction in interest rates would mean that we could steadily increase our construction and hopefully increase our sales. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. And what's been the runway on your profit margins at this point? And I guess also maybe just as a second part to that question, your cost management.
Yeah, well, we've just finished a meeting prior to this. The amount of energy and effort that our managing director and his team, hopefully including myself and John, put into it is unbelievable, actually. The team are really focused on cost management and at the same time making sure that the quality and the materials we use are of a high standard.
And also, do those cost and sales dynamics also differ in the different provinces? Because obviously you are a diversified property company geographically in South Africa.
Yeah, look, you've got to be very careful. Natal has its own, or KwaZulu-Natal has its own dynamics, and so does the Western Cape. But obviously up here on the Rand with Tshwane and Gauteng, they definitely are very, very similar. So we just got to be careful of the different areas, the different dynamics.
Yeah. And actually, just looking at your building priorities at this point and capital allocation priorities, what are those looking like in the short to medium term, and really what you are focusing on in terms of your investment priorities?
Our larger projects, it's all about infrastructure. We're still very, very patiently waiting for the funds to flow from on our Mooikloof development, as well as the Bla. We've been assured they are going to flow. Once they flow, that makes a massive difference to our ability to develop the infrastructure quicker and therefore to build at a better rate. So we're still looking at very, very careful capital allocation until those funds come in.
And what does the momentum on your sustainability initiatives look like?
We're still pushing it. I'm on the board of the Green Building Council. We're pushing the sustainability of our products as hard as we can. I want it to be edge advanced on all our projects. We're pushing very hard to make sure that our black water harvesting, our solar panels on the roofs or on the car up to scratch. We're really pushing to get our developments as sustainable as possible.
Are there any decisions that you are making at this point in terms of the risks that you are seeing that might be filtering through from the difficult macroeconomic environment? We do know that the global environment right now is very uncertain, very shaky, and of course that could spill over to South Africa. Any conversations that you are having there with your team in terms of strategy and the decisions that you're making at this point?
Yeah, we definitely are. We're pushing our annuity business. That's turning into be a real winner, and we want to continue growing that annuity business because that flattens out improves our earnings. We're also looking at a very large rental portfolio because we want to try and absorb some of our land quicker. And there is a big demand for rentals at the moment, but we've got to be careful because as the interest rates come down, that'll start swinging. So at the moment, the consumers are looking at renting rather than buying. And despite that, we're still having good sales volumes, which is very pleasing. But as the interest rate change, we've got to be very, very alive to that split between rental and selling.
Yeah. And just lastly, on your outlook, how would you describe your outlook at this point? Cautiously optimistic?
Yeah, I'm a very proud South African. I've publicly stated that. I'm passionate about South Africa. I just wish that, our municipalities, particularly Gauteng and Tshwane, which are powerhouses in Africa, I wish they would just get the infrastructure right. It's all there. It just needs maintenance. It needs the weeds pulling out of the road. It needs the potholes fixed, etc., etc. Come on, guys. Can we get our act together in this beautiful country of South Africa?
Well, and here's hoping that the partnership between a business and a government can actually get to a point of encouraging the municipalities to pull up their stocks. Thank you so much for your time, Steve. That was Steve Brookes, CEO of Balwin Properties.